Hey guys, and welcome back to Monka, where stupid shit ensues, but today I have something a bit different because instead of doing a video where I talk about what I played, today I'm going to talk about what I actually watched. I'm not a very avid TV watcher, but when I do, I usually watch anime, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So today, maybe implicatively by the t-shirt, I watched Dragon Ball Super. Actually, I've never watched Dragon Ball Super before November 2021, if you can believe it. Besides being like an actual Dragon Ball fan, I never was really, well, I was more into Dragon Ball Z, I suppose. I was never really like Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball GT. It was more like specifically Z. And in November, when I beat Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, that kind of reinvigorated this love for Dragon Ball. And I was like, well, I want to watch Dragon Ball. And so I picked pretty much the best thing to go after Dragon Ball Z, which is Dragon Ball Super, pretty much because it's a sequel series to Dragon Ball Z. And what did I think of it? Well, I don't know. It's kind of like I don't think it's controversial to say I'm a bit disappointed by it. It's still a great show, like, don't get me wrong, but there are quite a few disappointing moments in Dragon Ball Super. This will be kind of semi-spoiler, so if you haven't seen Dragon Ball Super, there might be like some minor spoilers. I'm not gonna try and go like crazy with spoiling it though, but Dragon Ball Super is made by Toei Animation based off this story by Akira Toriyama. 131 episodes, ran from 2015 to 2018. There may potentially be a second season on the way, but that's not really confirmed. I know the manga is still running, so there's a good chance they may do some more episodes eventually later, but who knows. At this point, they're more focused on like the movies as of right now, but I don't really know where to start with Dragon Ball Super, but I can say right off the bat that the fact that I think Dragon Ball Super is kind of mediocre. It's a good show, and it really is in the spirit of Dragon Ball, but there's something really missing from Super that made me love Z so much. It's not as bad in some aspects, like it's actually better in some aspects, like in terms of like the filler and stuff. It's actually a better series, but there's also things like the fact that there's some points when you really don't feel the emotion that you do in something like Dragon Ball Z, due to there being like more emotionally like tense moments in Dragon Ball Z. Some of those are kind of lacking from like Dragon Ball Super. Like there's not as much tension at some points that there was in like Dragon Ball Z, or like dread or anything. Like in the Saiyan Saga of Dragon Ball Z, when Vegeta and Nappa show up and like are like just wrecking shit and everyone's dying, there's like some dread in that, and there's like some moments of that are like missing in Super, and there's like moments of like real emotion like missing in Super that were in Z. And so in some ways, Super compared to Z feels really soulless to some degree. It's still a good show, like, don't get me wrong, but there's like the emotion in Super sometimes feels like it's missing or like lacking altogether. Now, starting off with like, I'll kind of review it like I do with a game, but the animation in Super is actually pretty clean. I won't lie, it's not that bad looking, like especially compared to Z. Like Z was pretty rough, even in Kai it was kind of rough looking. Super, they really update the animated style and it looks really good. Now obviously there's some fibbing with the frames where it's like they'll still repeat like multiple frames over and over, like during a fight, like when they're going they'll just kind of repeat the like fight frame over and over. They do some of that, but it's still really like the actual like animation style itself is really clean. The music really just does its job, to be honest. I'm not gonna really go on too much about it because it does what it's supposed to do, I think, and it's really in the vein of Dragon Ball. It's a good soundtrack. There's a couple of songs that were like really good, like the Ultra Instinct song really hits like crazy when that moment hits, but it's like, other than that, the soundtrack is what it is, to be honest. I don't really have an opinion on it just because it just complements what it is well. Like I said, the only real song that like stands out to me is like the Ultra Instinct theme, which is fucking nuts for that moment. But a lot of depth of what I feel about this show really comes from like the characters and the story and all of that, which I feel in a lot of ways it's lacking. And really I noticed it when I hit like the third or fourth arc in the show, is when I really noticed that, damn, the first 45 episodes really fucking sucked. And I don't mean that in an offensive way, but it really felt like they didn't hit as hard as they should have. The first 30 episodes of Dragon Ball Super are actually based on two different movies. Battle of the Gods is like the first 15, and then the second 15 are like one called Resurrection of F. It's very clear that Resurrection of F was a movie before it was adapted to a show. They more or less adapted it to the show just to make sure that it was like everyone who was watching Super was on the page that, oh hey, Goku and Vegeta Vegeta can do two new things. You know, Goku apparently could do something called Super Saiyan God, which they completely discard after the first 15 episodes, but then 100 episodes later bring back with no explanation as to how he can go Super Saiyan God again. But I digress. Plot holes. You know, it has to introduce the fact that Goku can go Super Saiyan God to, you know, make sure that, hey, you know, Goku can push past Super Saiyan 3. And then in the Resurrection of F arc, they introduce Super Saiyan Blue to say, hey, look, Goku and now Vegeta can hit Super Saiyan Blue without Super Saiyan God, because Super Saiyan God is unobtainable apparently without like doing the ritual, except like I said, that's thrown away 100 episodes later when Goku goes Super Saiyan God to preserve his power to not go Super Saiyan Blue. It's a bit, the plot holes are weird, like I said, I'll get to that, but it's like the first 30 episodes are Resurrection F and Battle of the Gods stretched out over 30 episodes. If you've seen both movies, I imagine you could probably skip the first 30. There is probably some content in there they added in after the fact, but I'm not sure. I didn't watch Battle of the Gods or Resurrection of F. I just know that that's what the first 30 episodes are adapted from. I feel like the moments in the Lord Beerus, like the Battle of the Gods arc, are kind of weak. Even though Goku goes like Super Saiyan God and that's cool and all, it doesn't hit as hard as I feel like it should have. I don't know. There was just something lacking there, and I have no idea what it was, but there felt like something was lacking. Even after you get out like the honeymoon period of being like, oh my god, Dragon Ball Super, and it's a follow-up to Z, and like you get like all that nostalgia out of your system. It's kind of like there's something lacking about that arc. The Resurrection of F arc is a pretty cool arc, I won't lie. It has some cool moments. It does drag on. There's filler per usual in Dragon Ball. Then they drag it out a little bit for the movies for whatever reason. Resurrection of F ends very unsatisfying, that arc at least. It's a very unsatisfying ending. I didn't like it at all. I feel like they give Goku a lot of the moments in Super, and they really should disperse it amongst the other characters, but I digress. So there's a lot of filler arcs, which I'm not going to mention. I think pretty much the main two arcs after Resurrection F and Battle of the Gods are the Goku Black or like Zamasu arc, which is the best part of this entire show. I fucking love that Goku Black Saga arc, whatever you fucking want to call it, because that 20 episodes is like the 20 best episodes in this show, bar none. I don't care what people say about the Tournament of Power. The Goku Black Arc is the best 20 episodes in this show, bar none. It is fucking amazing. It's just like, it has everything that I feel like is missing in the show is in the Goku Black Arc or Zamasu arc or whatever the hell you want to call it, because like the dread and like the fear and like the tension that I would like feel in like Dragon Ball Z was in Dragon Ball Super and like the Goku Black Arc. That's where it was. It was like all, but that's the only arc that really has like this sense of like tension and urgency and like dread. It's like one arc of 20 episodes is when you feel like this actual sense of dread. It's like episodes like 46 through 70. I can't remember the exact episodes. That's like when you actually feel legitimate like emotion that's like missing throughout the rest of the show, which is one of the reasons why I feel kind of disappointed about this show. Is like once you got a taste of what this show could have actually been through that arc, the rest of the show kind of falls flat. Like, oh man, I watched 46 episodes of kind of disappointing content to actually get something that was really, really good in the Goku Black Arc. And then the rest of the show really never hits that high note ever again. Even with the Tournament of Power, I get it. Tournament of Power is really cool and shit, and people like the Tournament of Power, but Tournament of Power really isn't as amazing as that arc is. So honestly, if you were to watch like 20 episodes of this show, it would have to be like the Goku Black Arc, because that's by far really the most emotional and like the best part of this show. And it has its hype moments as well, so it's still in the vein of Dragon Ball, but it actually has like some emotion to it, like dread and fear and urgency, like the emotions that I wish I could like have felt like throughout the entire show. I only really feel for 20 episodes. Like I get it, like I get that you can't have like the entire show being like this emotional like train wreck, but it's like I really wish there were more emotional moments like those 20 episodes in the Goku Black Arc. Watching the rest of the show after that just still feels disappointing, because like you kind of feel like you saw the best part, and really the rest of the show just kind of confirms that you really did just see the best part. But the Goku Black Arc is by far like the best arc in the show. Like it's amazing, honest to God. I wish Super had more moments like that. The fact that it doesn't is just honestly disappointing. But honestly, the only major arc after like that Goku Black arc is Tournament of Power. And Tournament of Power is really good, with one particular moment just standing out above the rest. I've already mentioned it, which is Ultra Instinct. It's fucking crazy when they introduce it. Ultra Instinct, upon its like introduction, is fucking wild and it's crazy. And I mean, my jaw was on the ground when it was like that moment hit. That shit's just crazy. I mean, Tournament of Power besides Ultra Instinct is honestly kind of bland, which is a controversial opinion, I know, because people really like, everyone I've ever talked to really like Tournament of Power and not a lot else. Tournament of Power is great, like I said, like it's just a bunch of fighting. It's probably why people liked it, is a bunch of fighting. But besides Ultra Instinct, I found it to be kind of underwhelming, which brings me to all the flaws that I have with Dragon Ball Super. Number one is consistency of pacing. This show really sucks with metering its pacing in a lot of aspects. There's sometimes when the fights go on for like long, like Resurrection of F and Battle of the Gods have really long fight scenes between like Beerus and Goku, or like between Frieza and Goku. It's like their fight scenes are really long. But when you get to like Vegito versus Zambazu, it's like a 1 episode long fight, when in all reality that's a fight you want to see for more than 1 episode. And something like, I don't know, Ultra Instinct Goku versus Jiren for the first time lasts less than an episode. And that's the introduction of the highest power level Goku hits in like 100 episodes. So it's really weird that they shuttle it to like less than an episode of a fight. It really feels unsatisfying, and the show just suffers from like pacing. It's so strange how the show at one moment has a fight that lasts like 5 episodes to what you expect from Dragon Ball, right? To like a fight that lasts less than an episode, and a fight that lasts less than an episode that you really want to maybe see like 2 or 3 episodes of in reality. The show's pacing sucks. Like, I really wish it was paced better. The filler is really trash. I won't lie. Out of 131 episodes, I would say about half of it's filler, if not more. And the filler arcs, which are, there's like 3 or 4, are really trash. Like, there's literally an entire episode that is Champa's team versus Beerus's team playing fucking baseball. And that's an entire episode of an anime about buff dudes yelling and beating the fuck out of each other. But in one episode, they play baseball. This show... This show at some points makes absolutely no sense as to what it even feels like it's trying to fucking do. Like, this show feels so disjointed at points that I'm confused as to what they were trying to do. Even being a person that gets like caught up in hype sometimes, I can still pick out the parts of the show that just feel weird. Why are the emotional moments so downplayed except for like 20 episodes of a really amazing arc? Why don't I really feel like emotion? Why, like, I don't really feel emotion in this show. I feel like a majority of the moments in the show that are really enjoyable are just like them beating the fuck out of each other in the fight scenes. I don't feel like there's like any actual emotional scenes besides like the Goku Black Arc, like I mentioned. The show feels like on a lot of points it just kind of feels like it doesn't know what it's trying to do. Is it trying to make it like a show just about the pure fight and hitting new power levels, or is it trying to have its emotional aspects? Even the emotional aspects, and I feel like this is a big part, the show makes attempts at emotional moments, but they always feel like they just fall flat on their face. It's just something that's really disappointing, because it's like, oh, this should have been like, you'll be watching, you'll be like, oh, this moment should have really been emotional. I don't really feel emotion. I'm not a sociopath as far as I know. It's just the show really isn't able to hit those emotional notes like it should, either because it underplays them or it really doesn't work to actually make the moments emotional. The story just really falls flat because it feels like there's no actual objective to it, and I think that's the words I was looking for the entire time. The show feels pretty objectiveless, besides the Goku Black Arc where there's actually an introduced threat. Goku Black is like a god. He's like damn near invincible as far as you know throughout those 20 episodes, and so the threat is actually there. There's an actual threat of someone destroying the entire universe, but for the rest of the anime, it feels like there's no real threat. Even during the Tournament of Power, when like your universe is threatened to wipe out all except for one, the threat really doesn't feel like it's there. There's no real sense of dread. I don't know if I was missing something or if it legitimately just wasn't there. Compared to something like Z, where there's actually feels like there's something to lose, and there's an actual threat, Super just kind of falls flat. with that. Okay, I get that in Z there's like one arc where that kind of doesn't work, but like the other three, it works fine. Like you actually feel like there's something to lose, and that's just the big problem with Super. I feel like the objective of Super is missing, and like the actual like threat is missing through most of it, except like I said, those 20 episodes of Goku Black. That being said, I really enjoyed Dragon Ball Super, despite like the massive flaws that I think it has. It's still an enjoyable show to watch. It's still fucking Dragon Ball. Like you can't take Dragon Ball out of Dragon Ball. It's an enjoyable show. Watching Goku hit Ultra Instinct is fucking nuts. Watching Vegeta hit Super Saiyan Blue 2 is nuts. Watching Goku and Vegeta hit Super Saiyan Blue for the first time is nuts. Like all these moments are really cool, but at the same time, it just sometimes the story feels underwhelming. The plot holes are various. The biggest plot hole I can say is the fact that they try to explain off the fact that Goku can't hit Super Saiyan God again, but instead he obtains the power of Super Saiyan God through a level called Super Saiyan Blue. It's pretty much implied in Battle of the Gods that Goku can't hit Super Saiyan God without doing the ritual, except in a tournament of power when Goku goes Super Saiyan God to preserve his power to not go Super Saiyan Blue. It doesn't make sense. That's a big plot hole, and there's also a lot of shit that they just kind of throw out there and then yank away at the same time. Like there's a shit ton of that. Goku goes like Super Saiyan 3 like maybe 2 times during the entire anime, and it's kind of weird. And then he really heavily uses Kaioken, which is neglected throughout like the entire thing except Tournament of Power, where they really like Kaioken apparently. Other things like, you know, Vegito is forgotten for like pretty much the entirety of Dragon Ball during like Buu up until fucking Goku Black when they decide to bring Vegito back. Or there's just a lot of shit that like comes and goes, and it feels like it's just a lot of wasted potential. Like they introduce so much shit that they throw away so soon that it's just, that's a Dragon Ball problem, I get that, but that's like if you feel it in Super as well. In total, I watched all of Dragon Ball Super. It took me from November to June, including a break that I took, so it took me about 7 months to watch it, and I enjoyed it enough. It's a good anime, but the flaws are there. And I can say if you're not a Dragon Ball fan, you're not gonna like Super because it's 131 episodes of Dragon Ball with a lot of problems in it and a lot of like flaws. Overall, I think if you're a Dragon Ball fan, Dragon Ball Super is great. It's fun. It's fun to watch, but it's like looking back at it, I can very much pick out the flaws that it has and say that at some points, yeah, I know at some points I wasn't enjoying Dragon Ball Super as much as I wish I was enjoying it. But thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay chill.